caught it just in time though, because we're still covering calculated fields. So you guys should be able to come back and watch this. So we'll go through a couple more examples still. Okay, you were starting to say something, Hamza?
Oh, it was starting with sum. It's gonna start with sum, right?
Yep.
Let's see. Okay, hold on. Sum of so we take sales price.
Yep.
Sales price or revenue. Okay, so it's what's sold and what's unsold, right? So sales price versus revenue or quantity, something like that.
Yep, exactly. So we know that we have $114,000 in total sales, and that came from 868 bookcases. So if we just take the sum of sales divided by.
Okay.
Can you show your screen?
Oh, yeah, absolutely, I can.
Thank you.
All right, so sum of sales divided by the sum of quantity. And again, make sure your sums are in blue, your sales and quantity are in orange, and you get this calculation is valid. Then we hit OK. We now have average sales price. If we drag, we'll now get our prices here. So on average, bookcases cost $132. We sold 868 of those, and that gives us $114,000 in sales. Fasteners are only $3. We sold 914. That gives us $3,000. If we remember right, from last night when we did the pie charts or whatever, fasteners, we were like not making a ton of money off them. Well, yeah, it's probably because we're only selling them for $3 a pop. So now actually let's combine both things that we did. Let's pull in profit margin 2 underneath quantity sales and average sales price as well too. So if we look at this, we are actually, fasteners give us a pretty good profit margin, about 31%. We're actually losing money on bookcases, so maybe we need to raise the prices there. We're losing money on tables, probably need to raise prices there. So even just by adding in these 2 additional fields, our average sales price and our profit margin, now we can take this really boring data set that Tableau gave us by default and actually start making business decisions based on this. Mm-hmm. Let's go one step further and let's drag region onto our columns. And let's actually drag region in front of measure names. So now we can see, let's stick with the bookcase example. In our central region, we have a negative 8% profit margin on bookcases. East region, a negative 2%. South region, 12%. And West is a negative 4.57%. So if I'm a sales manager and I'm looking at this, this gives me the opportunity to dive into, okay, what is the South region doing differently? Their sales price is way lower, $92 versus $174, $126, and $118. So they must be saving cost somewhere so that they are still able to make money on bookcases. So what are they doing to produce their bookcases? Are they using a different type of wood? Do they have deals with certain manufacturers? Do they have less sales reps? Maybe they only have one person, so they have less people on salary. because they're able to extremely undercut the cost of a bookcase and still turn a positive profit margin. So these are questions and decisions that we're able to make now, analyzing the data that we never would have been able to make without these calculated fields. So these are brand new data points and brand new insights that we're now able to produce, that if an executive was just looking at the Excel spreadsheet, they'd have no idea how to actually derive those insights. Does that make sense, at least at a high level, for calculated fields?
So I have a quick question. Let's say I wanted to give this as a presentation. I worked for this company and I wanted to like highlight the cells that were like specific. So like the negative 25.61. Is there a way to do that in Tableau?
Yes, there is. So what I would probably do is there's ways to do it.
There might be like a calculation, right? Like if it's like if something is negative 10 onward, because if I'd give a presentation, I'd be like, hey, focus on these numbers. This is this is where we're losing the most profit. Furniture has a low profit in this, in the central region.
Yeah, that's actually such a good prompt. Let's actually just build that view, and it's actually a really good segue into a different type of calculated field as well too.
You can also do a heat map too with that.
Yep, a heat map would be one way for sure. Okay, let's create a new worksheet. And let's pull in our region and subcategories onto our columns. And then let's pull in our profit margin 2 onto our rows. And our, what were we just looking at? Average sales price onto our rows. So the next thing that we're going to cover, I promise there's a method to my madness from the PowerPoint slide here. The next thing that we're going to cover is if-else statements. Gosh, my PowerPoint's moving slow. So we covered basic arithmetic, right? That's just plus, divide, profit divided by sales, sum, sales divided by quantity, right? Now we're going to cover if statements. So if statements, let's just go ahead and create one real quick. So click this little drop down arrow, create calculated field. And let's call this, East region. I'm going to type this out. Don't worry about following along right now. Just like listen here and I'll show you how this works, and then we'll go back through and I'll explain it. So say that I want to, again, the original question here, say we want to highlight one specific thing on here. Let's start by just highlighting everything in the East region, and then we'll work our way down. So the way if statements work, they all start with if. Very straightforward. Let's go if region equals, parentheses, East, then highlight else, nothing, doesn't matter, end. So the way that if statements work is you start with if always, and you give it a condition. A condition is something that can either be true or false. So remember, this is going to work its way through in calculated fields. It works its way through every row. and it's going to check for each row, is region equal to east, right? We know our 4 options are central, east, south, or west. So for each row, it's going to analyze this condition. If this is true, if region equals east, your next key word here is then. So if this condition is true, then what are you going to return? What is the new data point going to be if this is true? What we type inside of these quotes here can be really whatever we want it to be. It's just whatever we want the new data point to say if this is equal to true. So I want to highlight it. So I'm just going to call it, I just want it to return highlight just for me. It just makes sense. But the point is, if condition is true, then if condition is true, what do you return? I'm going to return the word highlight. The next key word here is else. So if this is true, then return this. Else, meaning this is not true. So if region equals central, south, or west, it doesn't equal east, so we're not going to return highlight. We are going to return nothing. And again, this is just the word nothing. We can type whatever we wanted in here, but I want to highlight, I want to highlight the east region, and I don't want to do anything for anything else, so it just makes sense to return nothing. And then the last keyword is end. So every if statement has to start with an if, it has to end with an end, and then you need a then statement for what to do if it's true, and an else statement for what to do if it's false. The good news about this is this same syntax or coding language persists through really every coding language that ever has been invented. There are some small nuances with like how you quote stuff and if you use single equal signs or double equal signs and stuff like this. But if you guys were to take a Python course or a C++ course or a JavaScript course or a SQL course, if statements exist in all of those different coding languages, and it also exists in Tableau. So once you get the fundamentals of if statements in Tableau, you'll be able to apply those to those different languages as well too. So we just created this new field called East Region. Let's look at what it looks like in our data source here. Right, here's our calculation. These are all nothing, 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 nothing. Here's one that says highlight. And that says highlight because the region is east, right? All of these above it, west, central, west, south, south, southwest. So you can see for every single row now, we've created a new data point called highlight or called East Region, but returns highlight or nothing, right? If I wanted to edit this East Region calculation, I told you guys you could type really anything that you wanted in here, right? Just to show you guys how it works. So I changed it to return Charlie if it's the East Region, ASDF if it's nothing, right? That's just the value that it's going to return for every single row. Here's a Charlie, and you can see that that's in the East Region. So I'm going to change that back to highlight or nothing. And what are we going to do with this new data point? Well, let's hold on. Let me pause real quick because I told you guys not to follow. Then I told you guys to follow, and I was all over the place. Everyone make sure that they have this data point called East Region that looks like this. I'll give everyone 10 to 15 seconds to catch up just in case.
So are we putting that down then?
Correct. Yep. Create a new calculated field, type this in here, and then hit OK. All right. And I know we're a little over our normal break time. So give me like 5 more minutes and we'll take a break. So now on this East region, let's drag this onto color. And now you can see everything except for the East region is colored differently. We can click into color, we can click edit, and we can make our highlight, I kind of, let's make it like green, and let's change nothing to like gray. But the point is those words could have been anything, right? We could have made Charlie blue and ASDF pink. It doesn't matter. The point is we are now able to create a new data point where one thing is colored differently than everything else. Does that make sense? Any questions there?
So mine is showing like all the average sales price highlighted like into different colors instead of just the East region.
Okay. And you have East region on color?
Yes.
And your East region looks like this.
Yes.
Okay. Do you have region and subcategory on your columns?
Yes.
And profit margin and average sales price?
Yes.
Okay. Do you mind sharing your screen real quick?
Oh, 1 second.
It's not letting me add it here. Here, give me 1 second. Peyton, I'm going to remove you for a second just so I can share the screen. Okay, are you sharing your screen, Maria?
I'm trying to.
Okay. Or if it's easier, you can send me a screenshot in Slack of your screen. That works too.
Okay, I think I'll do that because Google is not letting me.
Yeah.
Or something.
Totally fine. While she's sharing that, does anyone else have any other questions on just how if statements function? And Amza, I promise we're getting to your original question of just highlighting one. We're just stair-stepping our way there.
This is pretty helpful. I mean, it makes it more, you can talk through like, hey, I want to show this. So it's cool. I like it.
There we go. Oh, okay, Maria. All you need to do is on your marks, let me share my screen again. Remember when we have dual axes, we have the ability to mess with just one axis. So this one is just the average sales. This is just the profit, or all of them. You have East region just on the average sales price one. So if you just drag that off and make sure that you drag East region on the one that says all right here, it should update both of them.
Yep, it's good now. Thanks, you.
Cool. All right, one more thing, then we'll take a break. Everyone click back into their East region. Hold on, let me remember. We were going to highlight bookcases in the South. Okay, I should have started there. Okay, so click back into East region. Click edit. Let's change the name of this from East region to South region bookcases, because that's what we were originally wanting to highlight. So to do that, obviously, right, we want to highlight this South region bookcases, wherever those are at, somewhere in here. So obviously we need the region to be South instead of East. So if region equals South, and again, it has to be typed in exactly as it shows here, so make sure that S is capitalized. We can provide, let me make sure I spelled that right. Bookcases is one word. Okay. We can provide multiple conditions, right? So this is called South region. If region equals South. And what I mean by that, this is just one condition, right? If region equals South. We can type the word and provide another condition. So we're going to say if region equals South and subcategory equals bookcases. So now for every row, it's going to evaluate both of those. Does the region equal South? Yes or no? If yes, and does subcategory equals bookcases? Yes or no? If yes, both of those have to be true, right? This isn't a logic class, and we won't go through all the ands or ors or and or. But if both of these are true, if region equals South and subcategory equals bookcases, then return highlight, else return nothing. If this is false, or if this is false, you'll go to your else and return nothing. So if everyone has this typed in exactly as it is, make sure it says the calculation is valid. Make sure South is capitalized. Make sure bookcases is capitalized and is one word. I think we call this South region bookcases. Doesn't matter. Now if we click OK, we just have this one line that's highlighted. It's in the South region and it's bookcases. You can see that the profit margin is positive and the average sales price is 92.4. So this would be a good way of showing, here's all of our profit margins. Here's all of our average sales prices. And you can see in the South region, the bookcases have a really low average sales price and a really high profit margin. So this, you toss this up in front of a group of executives, their eyes immediately get drawn to the green lines, and you can talk through why those are green and what you think you can do to cut costs to increase your profit margins. I don't know. Does everyone have this? Cool. Any questions on if statements or basic arithmetic? No? All right, let's take a 10-minute break. Let's be back here at 7:23. Save and scroll. Sweet. See you guys soon. All right, we'll go ahead and get going in about another minute here. All right, let's go ahead and jump in. I was thinking during the break, I was going to fill up my water. For as many difficulties as we've had tonight from a technical standpoint, at least my screen hasn't frozen once. So there are some pros to doing this remotely, I suppose. Okay. Give me 1 second here. Cool. So we've covered basic arithmetic. We have covered if-else statements. The two last ones that we're going to cover are called level of detail calcs and window functions. The one thing I'll take a moment to recognize and appreciate before we dive in, like I've said a couple times tonight, this is super kind of heavy hands-on data engineering type work. This is kind of not the last time we'll cover it, but this is, I like to get all of this out of the way kind of in one night. We will go back to the kind of data viz side of things for the remainder of the course here. I understand that this is kind of a different skill set and very, very technical and complicated. So if you're feeling frustrated or confused, just stick with it. I promise we'll get through tonight. This is definitely the hardest night of the entire semester here. So this is not the new norm moving forward. This is one isolated night to make sure that we all understand how to adjust and aggregate our data in different ways. And then the remainder of the course will be data viz stuff. So I say that because, believe it or not, the next two things are a little bit harder even than basic calculated fields. So let's go ahead and create a new sheet. Let's drag up our category onto rows, our subcategory onto rows, and our sales onto, let's go text. Okay, so we've mentioned this a couple different times. By default, Tableau always aggregates on whatever level you tell it to, right? So right now we're looking at category and we're looking at subcategory. So the sum of sales is aggregated by subcategory, right? 114,000 bookcases, 328,000 chairs, 91,000 furnishings, 206,000 tables. If we were to, you guys don't have to do this, but do region instead of subcategory, now it's 163,000 central, 208,000 east, right? So the sum of sales, let me go back to subcategory, is what we would say is on the subcategory level here. there are these things called level of detail calculations that allows you to work outside the parameters of the level that Tableau is showing. So we're going to go ahead and create one. Same exact way. Create new calculated field. Get our little text box here. And we're going to call this category sales. So what we're going to do, even though we're showing it on the subcategory level, we're going to create a field that adds up all the subcategories together on the category level. So to do that, you start with fixed. And if you hit tab, you'll get this little curly bracket and fixed. This lets you, this is what this is saying is you are.
Have you opened that window? Did you go to create calculated field?
Yep. Yep. Exactly like we were doing before. And then if you just type in FIX, it'll give you this fixed function. And if you click on it or hit tab, it'll automatically format it correctly. So we are going to fix our measure on a specific level, and it will stay that way no matter what we're showing on our view. So to show you guys what I mean, let's go ahead and type in category here. And then we're going to hit a colon like this. So far we're just saying fix whatever we're going to measure on the level of category. And then in here, we just type what we want to measure. So we want to measure the sum of sales. So we type in sum, sales, and then another little curly bracket to close it off. So again, I said that these are calculated fields on steroids. You can still do a lot of the same stuff that we're doing in calculated fields. Right here, we're aggregating sales. But why they're called level of detail calcs is we are fixing the level of what the detail that we're going to show is. So to show you guys what I mean, if everyone has this, these should all be blue. This should be orange, blue, blue, parentheses. And then don't forget that little curly bracket at the end. Make sure it says your calculation is valid. I'll leave it here for just a couple more seconds to make sure everyone has it. Fixed category, colon, sum, sales, curly bracket. If I hit OK and drag this up to text as well, and then let's go ahead and hit show me and hit that text table just so we get it in a little nicer format. I still have my sum of sales here, right? Sum of sales, 114,000 for bookcases. But now I have this new value, I can extend these out a little bit, called category sales. And look, these are exactly the same for furniture, 742,000, office supplies, 719,47,000, and technology, 836,154. So even though we're on the level of the subcategory here, our level of detail calc, category sales, is ignoring the Tableau level and just providing us the 742,000 no matter what. If we were to look into our data source, maybe level of detail calcs don't actually show here. Doesn't show here. But if we were to, like I did before, bring in region or something instead of subcategory, right? Here's our different regions, still aggregated by category. If I were to bring in category, subcategory again, now we have 24,000 for bookcases in the central and the furniture. The category sales completely ignores all that. Before I keep going, does everyone have this / does that make sense? Thumbs up. Okay, so why would I ever want to do this? let's say that I wanted to show what percentage of my sales, what percentage of my bookcase sales, let's actually drag category down one so it comes after sales. So what percentage of my bookcase sales come from all of my furniture sales? Or out of all my furniture sales, what percentage come from bookcases? Before, there's no way I could have done that, right? I could have summed up here on the furniture level my total sales, and I could have summed up on the subcategory level my bookcases sales, but I wouldn't have had those two data points together. They would have been in two totally different views. Now they're together. So because we have this new data point, this new level of detail calculation that's ignoring the level that we're showing in our view here, we can create a basic arithmetic calculated field to just divide sum of sales divided by our category sales. So to show you guys what that looks like, let's create a new calculated field. And let's call this percent of sales. And we're just going to do sum of sales, just like before, divided by. Now you may be tempted to type in the sum of the category sales, but remember, in our category sales, I'll catch up again. In our category sales, we're already doing an aggregation. We're already summing that up. So in our percent of sales calculated field that we just typed, sum of sales, we're going to divide by that AGG that we had talked about, aggregation, category sales. Oh, sorry, it's an attribute. ATTR. So an attribute is just saying that we don't need to aggregate it. It's already aggregated. We're going to treat it just like its own data point, just like bookcases was, or chairs were, or something like that. We can go into the differences between those two at a later time. But right now, just make sure that you have sum of sales divided by this new attribute that we created, category sales. I spelled percent wrong. Does everyone have this? Thumbs up and head nods. If we hit OK, we now have percent of sales. We can drag this onto measure values. They're all 0, right? Because it's rounding it, but we know how to fix that. We've done that multiple times. So percent of sales, the arrow, default properties, number format, and we're going to change that to a percentage. So now I can go through here. We could already tell by looking at our office supplies, right, that our fasteners were really low. We're only doing $3,000, but we never knew what percentage of our office supply sales that made up. We just knew, now we do, because we know that there's 719,000 total office supplies, and the percentage of sales for fasteners specifically is 0.42%. And what's funny is this is actually pretty close, Amza, to that tree map that you made, where you had the percentage of the total and then you colored it by category. So you're able to get the percentage of the category as well too. This is how you would have done that if you actually wanted to show those unique values there. Everyone have this? Does this make sense? Cool. Level of detail calcs, again, this is just one example here, are extremely powerful because it allows you to work outside the boundaries of Tableau. They are also one of the hardest concepts to learn because you're going outside the boundaries of Tableau. So I was fortunate enough to go to the Tableau conference 4 or 5 years ago. There are entire, 2-hour workshops led by the best Tableau experts in the world, strictly devoted to level of detail calculations because they're so hard to think through because they don't confine to the normal boundaries of what dimension are you showing, what aggregation are you showing. So that's just one example. If I were to ever teach like a Tableau 201 class, we would do, 4 whole nights just on level of detail calculations. But hopefully that helps you show or helps you understand the value of them. Okay, we're going to go through one more type of calculation called a window calculation. It should take about 20 minutes, then we'll be done for the night. So one last time, let's create a new worksheet. Let's drag order date onto our rows. And let's just stick with our sum of sales onto our text. So now I have 2014, we did 484,000, 2015, we did 470,000, 2016, 609,000, and 2017, 733,000. Say I wanted to calculate what my year-over-year increase was. From 2014 to 2015, you can see I went down about $14,000. Then we had a massive 2016. We went up about $139,000. 2017, we went up another $124,000. Right now, since this is the level that we're working on, 2014, 2015, 2016, 2017, I can't do something real simple with our basic arithmetic and create a new calculated field and just do 2014 divided by 2015, right? Because we're already aggregating by the year. The window function though, it's called lookup, but the window functions allow us to pull data in from rows above or rows below. So level of detail calcs let us pull in data outside of the detail that we're working on. This also allows us to pull in data outside the outside the level that we're working on by going up or down. So what does that look like? Let's create a new calculated field. And let's call this previous year. So for this, pretty straightforward. We are going to look up, and it gives you this little helpful hint. The expression that we want to look up, right? We want to understand what our sales were in the previous year. So we're going to type sum of sales. That's our expression. And then the offset is how far up or down you want to go. So if I just want the previous year, I would type in a -1 because that's going to go up 1, back 1, -1. If I wanted the next year, I would type in 1. That would go forward 1. If I wanted to go back 2 years, I would type in -2. That would go back or subtract 2 years. Obviously, if I wanted to go forward 2 years, I could do this, 5, 100, whatever you want it to be. But for the sake of this, we just want to go back 1 year. So we'll type in -1. And then we'll close out our parentheses. We'll get our calculation is valid key here. And then just to review, we're going to look up what the sum of sales were in the previous row. Back 1 row, -1 row. Again, look up and sum should be blue. Sales should be orange. Make sure that your parentheses all close out so that your sum You should have parentheses around sales. And you should have parentheses around the sum and the -1 here. Make sure it says the calculation is valid. Let's hit OK. Now we have this previous year data point. Let's go ahead and drag that onto text. And to make it a little easier to look at, let's hit that show me and hit text table. It flip-flopped our columns and our rows, but we know how to fix that, right? We just hit this little swap button right here, swap rows and columns. Does everyone have this? That was a few different steps all at once there.
Yeah, you said switch rows to what?
I just hit the swap button here, which flip-flopped the rows and the columns.
Okay.
And then our measure values, I'm going to drag previous year down after sum of sales, just so it's kind of in the order that we created them. So now you can see 2014, our sales were 484,000. The previous year's sale, we don't have, right? Because there's nothing before 2014. For 2015, we have the same 470,000. But now also in 2015, we have the previous year, which is 484,000. So this data point is on the level of 2015, even though it happened previously. 2016, you can see this goes back a year. 2017, you can see this goes back a year. And obviously we don't have anything else. To show you guys what I mean, you don't have to follow along with this point. But in our previous year, if I would have done -2 instead of -1, then obviously we wouldn't have anything for the first two, because we'd go back 2, there was nothing. We'd go back 2, there was nothing. But then this one, we'd go back 2, and we'd get 2014. I'm going to change that back to just -1, though. So who cares, right? We could have just looked back a year. We didn't need to have this right here if we wanted to know what our previous year's sales were. But now we have this on the same level. In 2015, we have both the 2015 sales and the 2014 sales. So if I wanted to show the increase or decrease, I would create a new calculated field. And let's call this year-over-year increase. And I would just type my sum. Let me make this bigger. Sum of sales divided by my previous year. We're already in our previous year, summing up the sum of sales in our lookup function, so we don't need it here. Whoops, sorry, I don't want to do divided by. Minus. Sum should be in blue, parentheses here, sales should be in orange, minus should be here, previous year should be in orange. So now if I hit OK, drag that under my sum of sales in my previous year, I now have a new data point that shows the year-over-year increase. So in 2015, we did 470,000 in sales. The previous year, we did 484,000. We lost $13,000 here in 2015. 2016, we grew $138,000. In 2017, we grew $124,000. Now, maybe they want to show that as percentages, year-over-year increase as a percent. So we could easily do that. Let's create a new calculated field and call this percent increase. And this is just going to be our year-over-year increase divided by our previous year. Both of these are already aggregated, so we don't need the sum in there. Year-over-year increase should be in orange. Previous year should be in orange. Here's a little fun fact, Tableau tip and trick that I learned from that YouTube video I sent. If you don't like typing and are worried about hitting tab and like it all being right, you can also just drag your data points directly from your measures column here onto here. If you guys like to drag and drop instead of type. It's just a little fun fact. So now if we hit OK, we have percent increase. We can drag that under our year-over-year increase. There are zeros, right? We've done this multiple times now. So for previous year, or sorry, for percent increase, we'll hit our little arrow, default properties, number format, percentage. So now we know if I were to actually display this, right, our data inc ratio, we know that we are already showing our 2014 sales. So we actually don't even need our previous year. We need it so that we can make these other things, but we don't need to show it, right? So we can get rid of that. And now I'd show, here's our sales each year. Here's the dollar amount that we went up or down. And this is the percentage that we went up or down. So in 2016, we grew 29.47%.
Quick question. What did you divide to get that percent increase again?
Yep. Percent increase was just our year-over-year increase divided by previous year.
Okay. Okay. All right. Thanks.
Yep.
Previous years. Okay. Got it.
So now let's zoom way back out and think about what we've done tonight. We haven't created a single chart. Well, I guess we made that one pretty highlight, this one. But we've really just made tables. But the important thing is, at the beginning of a night, the measures that we had to work with were discount, profit, quantity, and sales. We now have average sales price, category sales, percent increase, percent of sales, our previous year sales, our profit margin, and our year-over-year increase. So we've made 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different data points that didn't exist in our data set before that we now have the ability to work with. So sure, we could have taken our Superstore orders data set and made some cool visualizations showing what was in the data. But if we're data scientists or we're data analysts or we're data visualization specialists, and someone comes and asks us for insights or to solve a problem, we're not going to be able to solve that problem or present to them an insight that they didn't already know just by using the data that they gave us to work with, right? We need to use our skill set to calculate new fields. In order to calculate new fields and display it in Tableau, we're going to have to change the level that we're working with. We're going to have to look up what previous years were, what next year's were. We could now have, with these 7 new data points that we made, we can make all sorts of visualizations and charts and provide insights that we wouldn't previously have been able to make. So hopefully you found tonight valuable. Hopefully you didn't get too frustrated by it. This will unlock a ability for you all to work with that will absolutely take you to the next level. So just like all teaching ever, tonight was the hard way of doing these things. It's really important to understand the level that we're working on and the data and how it's structured. Next week on Monday, I will show you guys what are called quick table calculations, which is literally just a drag and drop function, just like the rest of Tableau, to do a lot of the things that we did tonight without having to type it in or understand the syntax or make calculated fields. So as always, there is an easier way, but I promise you that the understanding of how it functions will pay dividends towards the end. So before I get into the homework section, which I promise is super easy tonight since it is such a heavy night, any questions on calculated fields, if-else statements, basic arithmetic, level of detail calcs, or window functions? Clear as mud? Sweet. So the only homework for tonight, if you click into create new calculated field, I showed you guys this, I think, last night. If you hit this little arrow on the right here, it brings up all the different calculated field functions that you can use. All you need to do is go through this, not all of it, click around. If you click into it, it tells you here's ABS, returns the absolute value of a given number. So if you did the absolute value of -7, you'd get 7. Average, pretty straightforward, returns the average of all the values in the expression. It can be used with numeric fields. Ceiling is an interesting one. Rounds the number up to the nearest integer of equal or greater value. So 3.14 would round up to 4. Click through a few of these. Look for ones that you think might be interesting. Look for ones that you think could potentially be useful. Maybe you've heard them before. Lowercase, we talked about this. It just returns the same thing in lowercase. Find a calculated field function, figure out what it does, and just Teams it to me. Just find one that we didn't talk about tonight that you think may be useful down the road. I wouldn't spend more than 10 minutes on this. If you want to go through every single one, great. But just click around to a few, understand how it's working here. Space, this gives you 2 different spaces. Sweet. I don't know when I might use that, but I might. String, turns a string. I'll stop going through examples to save some for you. So go through those calculated field options, find one that you think is interesting, and literally just Slack me the name of it. That makes sense?
Yep.
Cool. Thank you guys for sticking with me tonight. I apologize for the hiccups with the virtual teaching. I will be back in the elevator building on Monday for our 3rd week. We are now officially halfway done, and we'll go from there. Otherwise, everyone have a fantastic weekend, and I'll see you guys Monday.
Thank you.
Thank you, Charlie.
All right. Good night.
Thank
guys.
you.